David Coulthard this week was like, if that happened later in the race, he would have been thrown into the sea.
But it didn't.
But it didn't.
It was lap
happen right at the
one.
start. Yeah, if he crashed into 12 cars, he might have been banned for Formula One. But he didn't, though. The last few years, I've been saying, Rod, on record, that the drivers haven't been risking it for the biscuit. Because I think they've all been concerned about...
There's no real drivers anymore. No one takes any risks.
There's no real drivers, Rod.
They just like, oh, why? They just put my nose in. Oh, it didn't happen, so I'll just pull out. And everyone complains about that. And now drivers just out there having an honest crack. And look how people react.
I thought you were going to say an honest crash, because that's what they are, Rod. Honest crashes.
They're really crashtastic. And I mean, lap 1 to Monaco 3 incidents. I mean, that's the least, the tamest. Piastri and Sainz, just a little love tap, and he gets a puncher. Almost nothing until, oh my goodness, a whole bunch of other stuff. So I don't know if you want to do Ocon or KMAG first, but I'll let you choose.
Let's do KMAG, because this is where he's had he said we haven't spoken in 3 or 4 races, right? Well, it's 4. I know it's 4. I don't know why I advocated on the 3 or 4. A handful races, Rod.
Look, could be 2, could be 7. Races. Who's counting other than
this
me?
This is what Kevin Magnussen's saying about his crashes. It could be 10, right. It could be 7.
Have I got 3 penalty points or 14? Who's counting? Why do you even bother counting for?
The important thing to remember is I'm racing and they were incidents, so they are racing incidents. There's not incidents of me being an idiot.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all in there.
Kevin Magnussen involved crash.
What are they? A crash collaborated with Kevin Magnussen, like crash collab
from the minds of Perez and Magnussen.
The creative mind, featuring Kevin
Nico
Magnussen.
Hulkenberg and Joe New as innocent bystander. We're having fun. Big crash at Monaco. Caused a red flag. I mean, the reddest of flags. They couldn't red flag this thing enough.
No. Oh, man. It was so red. And I want to talk about the Carlos Sainz thing as well in a second. But
all right.
I can see why it's a racing incident, right? David Coulthard this week was like, if that happened later in the race, he would have been thrown into the sea.
But it didn't.
But it didn't.
It was lap
right
1.
At the start. Yeah, if he crashed into 12 cars, he might have been banned for Formula One. But he didn't, though. He just got up the inside or the outside, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was.
This is a funny one.
It's the racing you want to see, right?
Everyone is calling for KMAG to be banned, like basically to get the points and receive his race ban and sit out, because they're like, we've had enough of this guy. His brain has flipped. I think part of it is obviously the racing of the last month or so. He's had some pretty debatable,
icy,
almost indefensible moments where he was like, "Yeah, I drove like a fucking tool. I got penalties for it. So what's the problem, mate?" There's a way to drive.
Games you win stupid prizes. I want to win prizes.
Exactly right. There's a way to drive like a sportsman, and there's a way to drive like a hoon. And his needle is like veering more towards hoon right now. So when these other incidents happen, people tend to just maybe be less forgiving. And I feel like this one in particular, everyone was like, that was K-Mag's fault. I was immediately thinking, K-Mag has, he like Perez pushed him into the wall a little bit. So
nowhere to go.
There's a bit of that. Perez could have stayed on the side where there was racing room and gone, just jinked a little bit.
He squeezed in. But there's nowhere to go on the squeeze.
All the drivers were saying, no, like the racing line is through the middle there. I'm like, well, yeah, but when there's no other cars, yes, that's true. Yes. And even if Perez doesn't have to give Magnussen space, I mean, Perez's car got all kinds of fucked up. So, and Perez, like, I was on the fence until I saw the Sky box, or what do they call it, Skypad, the iPad on the Skypad, on the Crypad. They showed the replay and they were like, let's just see if Perez looks in his mirror here. Oh, he does. So he looked right in his mirrors at KMAG and still.
I love the idea. He turned around and went, I fucking see you, KMAG.
Just turned around and he just gave him the finger. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I was going to say something conjecture-y, and I don't know if I want to, but I'm going to, you know what? I've only got one podcast. I'm going to do it.
Better.
I think that, like all of this crop of drivers, we do a lot of racing at non-street circuits, or we do a lot of racing at places where there's lots of runoff and where there's not a huge penalty, and you can be like, oh, the cars are so big and wide, and like there's 3 of us going in. Well, I'll just hold this racing line because you'll just go off the track, then it's okay. Whereas at Imola and Monaco and Zandvoort, even there's some of these older racetracks where it's like, well, you go off, like that's probably going to be the end, though. Like that's how it used to be. Like if you went off the track, the race was over. There is no like you go into the gravel, the idea you'd be able to get out of the gravel was non-existent. Like you like as soon as you touch someone or got to punch something, your race is usually over. Whereas now cars like limp home, or they get back going again, or they go through the runoff, they go around a bollard and like, oh, I had to give the place back. What a shame. Whereas at Monaco, there is nothing like that, obviously. And so I don't know what we expect. You know, I think that Magnussen he put himself in that position, but then there was also no way for him to get out of it. He's totally in the hands of Perez as soon as he's in that spot, right? Because if he brakes, he'll get hit from behind. He can't brake fast enough to kind of like, Perez is always going to kind of come in there. But I think we see it even with we've seen it in a couple of other races too, where it might have been at Miami where Hamilton was like, we almost had a big off there because someone took a place and then was like, well, I'm kind of like, my nose is in front of yours, so it's my racing line now, bitch. And it's not. And then they just, and they missed the apex, and the car that was going to hit the apex is like, well, where do you want me to go? Like, I'm going to have to go off the track here because you made a really late move. I mean, speaking of late moves, we had Perez. I don't know, man. Perez seems to find himself in these positions all the time. Almost took his teammate out. Was that in Miami as well? Like off the start, was like, I'm going to do it, and then just go straight behind.
Leroy Jenkins it straight down. Yeah.
Just had no breaks at all. I'm glad he's got a new contract signed, though, at Red Bull. I'm sure they're going to love having him there poodling around in 7th. As long as he's nowhere near Max, they don't care, I think. But, yeah, as you said, KMAG hasn't got a lot of credit in the bank that he could cash in on. So when something like this does actually happen and everyone's a bit like, lap 1, everyone's close. You're obviously a bit quicker than Perez. Don't know what to do there. Did you blame him?
I thought it was just racing. Every time I saw someone try to take a swing at KMAG online, on threads or whatever, they always seem to make the opposite point that they thought they were making, where they were like, why is Magnussen racing so hard on lap 1? There's the whole race to go. I'm like, dude, you have to race that hard on lap 1 of Monaco because look what happens when you don't. You follow each other around for the next 79 laps. So that's great. You just literally disproved the point that you were trying to prove, which was you don't need to race hard on the first lap, which you absolutely do. The other point, like you said, why is Perez taking that line? Well, you would take that line on any other lap. Like, but this isn't any other lap. It's this lap where there's cars already all around you, and you just have to be just a little bit more careful than that.
Yeah, so, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, on that first lap, that Piastri is getting really close behind Leclerc through the tunnel. And didn't just come up around the side coming into the swimming pool. Is it swimming pool? No, what's the
Nouvelle chicane?
I used it. Yeah, Nouvelle chicane. Exactly.
That's
Nouvelle
before
chicane.
the swimming pool chicane.
It's the new chicane, Rod. Not that Nouvelle anymore.
No. It's the Oldville, I'd say. It's been quite. They've been there a long
time. The Vaudeville chicane.
It's the Vaudeville chicane. Waka waka waka.
That's where we all go and crash. But yeah, he didn't just pop out and go like, well, look, here I am next to him and I'm going to go in left first. And then I expect you not to be there through the right part of the chicane, Leclerc, because I got into the left-hander first. So, he just didn't go for it because he's weak. Yeah. He's a coward, Rob. He didn't go for the gap that was half there.
That's the problem.
He's a soy.
I mean, cooler heads can prevail, sure. But yeah, I mean, I think at the same time, Magnussen and Perez was the head that needed to prevail. But obviously KMAG wipes out Hulkenberg, wipes out Perez, which Christian Horner was very happy about. Red flags the race, really ruins the race, actually. I mean, I don't know what would have happened with the other incident between the Alpines, whether that would have red flagged things. It might have, but
they were driving around okay, it seemed
They might have been able to cover that. I mean, Perez went on to finish 10th. Ocon might have been able to retire, but he's going into the tunnel, so I just don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it. I mean, even Sainz, I don't really know how Sainz got going again after the puncture. And then
you wanted to talk about that. Yeah, well, he
sort of come back in third. Why did he get to come back on? I haven't had someone.
This is what you wanted to talk about. Why did that happen?
So we red flagged the race.
Yeah.
And Sainz gets to come back in in third, even though he's basically last and out of the race. And they're like, "Oh, we're red flagging. You can come back in." Why did he get to start again?
Well, I guess
because the
they
incident
have to
had
wind
happened.
the race back to the last timing point. This is what they said. We have to go back to the last timing point before the incident, and he was still in third at that time. Just one of those weird things.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape. But of all the tracks where that's going to happen, like where that guarantees you a podium, this is the one.
Pretty much. It's always a popular result when Max Verstappen doesn't win. I do find myself also always rooting for Sainz.
Yes.
And against Perez. So, just great race. More races like that. I don't know what everyone was saying, but it was boring. I was loving it.
If you no longer